Well, I think Clay Henry is, too, the editor and publisher at Hogs Illustrated. You can, of course, read him also at WholeHogSports. Good to join us for a couple of segments today, right up to the top of the hour. Good morning, Clay. How are you?
I'm good. I prepared for you guys. I've already had my lunch. I had 2 Nathan's hot dogs.
Ooh.
Nathan's
the New York stuff.
That's the ones that Joey.
Well, we lost him. I think he must have gotten a hot dog stuck in the equipment. That's probably what's happened there.
Maybe Kobayashi was listening and he didn't want to hear the other news.
I think he was about to tell everybody how Nathan's is the hot dog that you do the eating contest with, right? That's actually the company that hosts the hot dog eating contest on July 4th.
So I wonder if Clay, when he eats his, if he dunks the hot dog and bun in the water.
Ugh.
Oh, God.
It's like the worst way to ever eat a hot dog.
There
we got
is.
you back here, Clay. I think you were telling us that Nathan's hot dog is the official hot dog of the hot dog eating contest. It's also now I guess I got to worry a little bit about sponsors and whatnot, but Nathan's is my favorite hot dog, all beef, and it's a New York thing.
That's Oscar Mayer's rolling over in his grave right now.
Oscar Mayer has the best jingle, but it's not the best hot dog.
No, that's right. A Nathan's hot dog on the street, not on the actual street, but purchased from a street vendor in New York City is the way to go.
Can we hear Clay Henry sing the Oscar Mayer Wiener jingle?
I can sing it, but I'm not going to.
Oh, okay. Darn it. Okay, well.
No, don't you realize that I thought we realized a few weeks ago that singing on these airwaves is usually not a good idea.
It's a bad idea when Ty does it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Clay, let me read some things here to you and ask about your opinion about Arkansas quarterback Feleipe Franks. He's in the middle of the pack in the SEC in a number of stats: passing touchdowns, passing yards, points responsible for, completion percentage, yards per pass attempt. I think he's been a steadying force on an offense that isn't quite very steady yet. You know what I mean? He's come across to me like a very good leader. I think that he and Davion Warren have really developed something. I think he's got a lot to do with Warren's development. And I wish they'd stop taking the ball out of his hands in some critical moments. What have you thought about Feleipe Franks these first 3 weeks?
Yeah, so the first week you have to say, okay, there's going to be some rust, right? And then you also factor in that everything that he did in that game was measured probably against the best defense that's in the SEC. We don't. Mm-hmm. 3 games is not enough data to say this is what it is. But I think his data, I'm talking about Franks, will continue to get better as other quarterbacks play that defense. I'm talking about Georgia's. And you're going to see Mac Jones's data probably change a little bit after this week. For instance, I'm going to give you a play, a swing pass to the back, which Arkansas tried to hit with Rakeem Boyd. And Monty Rice, who's the Georgia linebacker, he's faster than Rakeem Boyd. He ran him down for no gains or 1 yard or -2 several times. Anything that went wide to the back, those little passes. So you run those same plays the next 2 weeks in Mississippi State and Auburn's linebackers, that was a mismatch. And Traylon Smith got the ball in the flat, and he makes somebody miss or outrun them or get an angle, and all at once you got a big play. Well, that's the same play you completed against Georgia. And it is going to continue to be a good play against lesser linebackers. And I think you'll see that this week against Ole Miss. I don't think their linebackers I think it's Lakia Henry. He's a good, tough, strong player at the point of attack, and you're not going to run over him. But he's going to have trouble. That's going to be a mismatch with Arkansas's backs in the flats. I think it is. Well, that's something to watch. But those become really nice plays for the quarterback. You can just throw a 5-yard pass or a 2-yard pass or a 10-yard pass to a back, and he makes 10, 15, 12. Your quarterback rating just really takes a jump. And I think that's a nature of playing against teams where you're getting a mismatch as opposed to Georgia where it was a mismatch the other way.
Very interesting. What did you think about the switch with Ty Clary at right guard for Bo Limmer? Do you think we see that in the first quarter Saturday?
Could be. He played really well. I don't know how you sit Ty down after the way he played. And, again, I think it's, sometimes it's about matchups. And the other part that you would like to see is some depth play out in the offensive line where you can sub and you can bring somebody in and rest somebody, and then they're fresh for the fourth quarter. Ty played great. He really was criticized for his center snaps the last couple of years, and I think he was playing out of position. I think playing him at guard is a much better position where he doesn't have to deal with the snap. He's actually a pretty good blocker, and he's gained weight and he's gained strength, and I think he was sick. I don't think it was COVID. I think he missed a lot of preseason for several reasons, and I don't know what happened with Bo Limmer. He had a brace on one of his legs, so maybe it was some kind of lingering injury that say he wasn't 100%, and maybe he is this week. But that's a situation where I think Ty can play either guard spot, and he might be someone that can rest Limmer, and he might be able to rest Latham. So, and we know he could probably play center too. So that's a nice swing spot for Ty Clary. And I don't know whether their sudden jump in offense was related to that, but they sure looked like they got movement on the right side with Clary and Wagner as the game went on.
Got Clay Henry here with us on halftime. Clay, I want to look at the defense for a second from that Arkansas-Auburn game. They played well when they had to. They were able to get a few stops here and there, but I think the one thing that I really took away from that game, so many missed tackles during that game. What do you think led to so many missed tackles? Can we blame it on the weather, or is it just poor technique, or a little bit of both?
Yeah, I think that you had a situation where jerseys got wet, hands got wet, and it's just a little more slipping going on, and maybe you don't have great footing either, and you grab and you lose. Maybe you're not as sure as your angles and your cut. But yeah, there was more missed tackles in that game, and then you also have a situation where your top two linebackers are beat up. I think there's some rib injuries with Bumper Poole and Grant Morgan playing with a dislocated elbow. It's going to get better every day, but those guys did not practice in pads last week. I think they'll be a little better and a little stronger this week. Then, fortunately, you're going to have a bye week, so it couldn't come at a better time for Arkansas with some of their guys that are beat up. I think Jalen Catalon, who leads the team in tackles at safety, he's probably beat up too. So, hopefully you get Monteric Brown back sooner rather than later. Dorian Gerald is a guy that can help them at defensive end. So if they don't get anybody hurt this week, they might be more fresh for that second half of the season, that 6-game run down I call that the second half of the gauntlet.
Clay will be with us in the next segment, so stay tuned. If you've got a question for Clay, 877-377-6963, brought to you by Ouachita Farms, a state-licensed cannabis farm in Arkansas, also a processor and seed labeler, and making CBD products that are sold at nearly 200 stores all across the state, made with no additives, 100% natural, USA-grown hemp. This is a family-owned business owned by the Owens brothers. David, Jeff, Mark, and Mitchell all have experiences using CBD products. They're located at 3958 Highway 7 North in Hot Springs Village and at WashitaFarms.com. Use the code WPS15 at checkout. We'll be right back after the break with Clay Henry from Hogs Illustrated. Stay tuned. All right, Clay Henry's been good enough to stick around with us for another segment here on halftime, so we'll keep getting on this here a little bit. And, Clay, let's look ahead to this Ole Miss game. Do you now, Ole Miss doesn't care how long they hold on to the ball. I mean, they don't want to be dominated in time of possession, but, man, this is a game where I think Arkansas could do themselves wonders for beat-up defenders, and overall just to keep that offense on the field a lot more often than they've done. And that's got to start in the first quarter. And Sam Pittman was asked about that on Monday, and he blamed it on the pregame lead-up. Sort of guys liking how they look in their uniforms, not catching balls and anything. So I'm going to be focusing, it won't be at the stadium, you will. I'd be very interested to see what this team looks like while they're warming up on Saturday, aren't you?
Yeah, I think that's true. And you can speed up so there's more of a sense of urgency. You can speed up the warm-up. And I've seen coaches do that through the years. And I was telling Tommy and Ty this morning and discussed this a little bit, but this was back in, the middle of the Holtz era. And, of course, the Broyle Center had an indoor practice facility. It was like 40 yards by 30 yards. It was an odd configuration. And that's where the home team dressed. And before the game, Lou decided that they would have first-team offense against first-team defense for 10 plays, live scrimmage. And I can't remember the exact number of players that were hurt in those 10 plays, but there were like 5 to 8 starters that didn't play that day because of shoulder injuries, knee injuries, ankle injuries. We're trying to figure out after the game, it's like, of course, now Lou didn't tell us, but we go in the locker room and they're like, well, when were these guys hurt in warm-ups? He says, well, when we scrimmaged. You scrimmaged? Says, yeah. Says Coach Holtz wanted to get us started a little quicker today. Well, and they lost to Rice. I mean, it was like, how do you lose to Rice? Well, that's how.
Makes sense. Yeah. Is this team –
So intensify and speed up. Just don't do anything that's that jeopardizes a player being able to play in the game.
But it's the idea of focus, actually
No
you don't have time to focus yourself once the game has started. That's the message I'm hearing, not just from Sam, but, man, I hear that from Dave Van Horn and Mike Neighbors and Eric Musselman. And, the game actually begins before the game begins when you're an athlete.
Yeah, and, it's a day game and 2:30 and, when what does it take to get a guy to have his mind singularly on what's going on for that 3 hours, and how long can you stay at a peak? I've talked to golfers who say they can turn it on and turn it off. Like in between shots, they can do whatever they want, talk to anybody they want. Lee Trevino, he didn't care. He talked to everybody and anybody until it was time to focus, and then he was sharp as a tack for 10 seconds. But each player might be different. They need to start their focus an hour before the game or to be sharp. And, boy, you see some guys out there, they got headsets on, when they're out there walking around on the field beforehand, and it's a certain music, a certain song. And, maybe ZZ Top gets them going. I doubt it. I don't know. But,
they don't. None of them knows who ZZ Top is.
You think if I said, hey, we're going to play a little LaGrange in the locker room to get you guys going and a little thumping stuff, and they're LaGrange. Huh?
I've never heard that song before.
Clay's playing George Strait in his locker room.
I'm totally kidding about LaGrange. I know exactly.
Something about a trip to Mexico, right? That's what I'd be playing. George Strait.
Once again, we got Clay Henry here with us on Halftime. Clay, I think the big thing that I'm looking forward to seeing, we've talked a lot about Ole Miss's defense not being necessarily one of the best that the SEC's ever seen, allowing nearly 300 yards in rushing, 300 yards in passing. Do you expect that this be the week, and this may be a stupid question, but we haven't seen it to this point, that this is the week where the Arkansas offense really gets this thing moving?
Yeah, maybe, but what you really have to be careful with it, I can remember an Arkansas-Texas Tech game where Patrick Mahomes was, the quarterback, and the scores, the numbers, there was just one long methodical drive after another. Everybody kind of softened up their defense to keep it in front of you, and there were a lot of 12 and 14 play drives. Nobody ever stopped anybody, and it came down to one time where you got a field goal instead of a touchdown. So I think what it'll be is when you get in the red zone, do you get touchdowns or are you kicking field goals? So that's something to watch. You can't be kicking a lot of field goals in this game, I don't think. you're going to end up in the 30s when you need to be in the 40s if you kick too many field goals.
I'm anxious to see too, Clay. And we kind of put the Arkansas-Auburn game in the rearview mirror. We really did after Monday's show. But I think the one thing that everybody's still scratching their heads about offensively with this team is why you're bringing in Malik Hornsby and KJ Jefferson. And no disrespect to either of those guys, they're supremely talented. But when you got Feleipe Franks, who's nearly both times when that's happened, KJ during the Mississippi State game and then Malik Hornsby during the Auburn game, Feleipe Franks has been relatively hot bringing that team down the field, and then you take him out. I'm really curious to see if they're going to continue this goal line package that Sam Pittman has continually talked about, because they're 0 for 2 right now. And to me, they're going to have to start throwing in some passing plays in here just to keep the defense honest, don't you think?
Go back to the first game. What happened on the goal line against Georgia? Through an interception. So through incompletions. So it is much, much tougher on the goal line when your quarterback's not a running threat. Now, he's got to be a passing threat too. So, and I think that Hornsby had a run-pass option, and I think Briles was really disappointed that he didn't throw it on that second play. So it doesn't have to be just a called run when one of those guys comes in. He can't. In fact, it can't be one-dimensional. It can't be one-dimensional that Franks is just going to throw on the goal line. It can't be one-dimensional that KJ and Malik are just going to run on the goal line. So, but it is tough sledding inside the 10. It is really tough inside the 3. And a little speed on the edge was what they wanted. Now, it didn't work. I think that when you look at what happens on the goal line, whether it's Auburn or Arkansas, it was tough down there. And you don't have the vertical option. It's all horizontal, and you better be able to do some horizontal stuff. And whether those guys are the best option, the Kendall Briles and Sam Pittman have to analyze that. But so far it didn't work. But you also have to look and see, did it work every time with Franks? No, it hadn't this year so far, because they have kicked field goals and they have thrown, had turnovers. So they haven't been 100%, whether it's Franks or whether it's, one of those two other quarterbacks. So they've got to get better production in the red zone, no matter which one of those three plays down there.
I'm looking forward to reading your keys to the game column when it comes out, Clay. I want to switch over in these last couple of minutes to some yip conversation.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, and this is frightening stuff. I've never dealt with it personally, but I've seen baseball players unable to throw it 40 feet when routinely they've been able to throw it 40 feet accurately. I know this also occurs for golfers when it comes to putting. Is this something you've dealt with?
Yeah, I've changed my putting style. I've gone to extending the right finger down the shaft, trying to take some pressure off my right hand and some things. And I got to where for a few years I didn't even play any golf because I didn't want to have to face a 4-foot putt. I just didn't. Kidding. I didn't think. You hear sometimes that the hole looks, like a number 10 wash tub. Well, it looked like a thimble to me. It did. I listened on PGA Tour Inside the Ropes, or maybe it was Brad Faxon. He had the golfing psychologist Bob Rotello on, and it's such a mental thing. And I'm sure that Altuve he's got some mental coaches working with him. I saw Steve Sachs, Rick Ankiel. It's like, oh, you didn't want to watch it. It was almost as bad as watching, Dak Prescott get tackled on that play Sunday. It's like, this is going to be ugly, and Ankiel's going to – how far up the screen is he going to throw it? And, I saw Steve Sachs, trying to throw to first base. It was not very good. And, it's like there was a spell there where Carson Shaddy, where he threw the ball, and it's like, you don't want to be in the first base seats. Carson's over there at third base, and he gets a routine one, and he's got it in his hand, and you're thinking, duck! If you're over there 3 rows up in the first base seats, down that line, don't be sitting there with Carson having the ball. Now, he got through that, and I think it was actually a physical, like an injury.
You had an elbow problem.
Yeah, but then it gets to think, well, I'm healthy, but can I throw? And then it's a mental issue. But it's
painful
putting,
to deal with.
Throwing the ball, pulling the trigger. I just I think when you think this is going to be a miss, well, it probably is, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. You don't ever want to be saying, "Don't hit it to me. Don't hit it to me." Clay, we're up against it, so we'll leave it there. Thanks for sticking around for a couple
guys.
segments.
Thanks, Clay.
As always.
As
always, that's Clay Henry. And of course,
You guys
you can
are
read him
kind.
Hogs Illustrated and Whole Hog Sports. And